We are live for another Friday night hashtag TQIF.
TQIF.
So,
Fathery, Rapunky, when he joined the Seven, thank you for having me on.
well, yeah, but there's only two of us, not seven. But that's okay. That's all we need is two. We
Well,
can pilot the ship together with just the two of us.
he would say Rapunky Rapunky when he joined the seven for any number of people that he was honored by. So it's my new
Yeah.
catchphrase. I'm using it for everything.
Right. Well, are you ready to start this TQIF party
I sure
with,
am.
with some lower decks discussion? Okay, let's just go ahead and kick things off. Always say that. Always say we're gonna kick things off. Um, but yeah, I'm Fathery,
I'm Starfleet Boims.
and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Yeehaw! Was that an okay yeehaw?
That was great.
That's awesome.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 152nd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we have deep talks about Star Trek, and sometimes we invite this crazy Florida man on board to discuss Star Trek with us. We have the great Starfleet boy or Starfleet Boims here to talk about Kayshon, His Eyes Open, the second episode of the second season of Star Trek Lower Decks.
I have been so excited about this discussion because Tex Trek really breaks it down in a fun and detailed way. And oh my gosh, this episode has so much to talk about.
There's a lot of fun stuff to talk about in this one, and this is kind of a big week for us right now. We just had the birthday. What was it? Yesterday, the day of recording. It was yesterday, the 100th anniversary, the centennial of the great bird of the galaxy of Gene Roddenberry himself, who was born here in the Lone Star State of Texas.
It's true. I failed to mention on my live stream yesterday, but shout out to Gene Roddenberry, the creator, the great bird of the galaxy.
It was also Jonathan Frakes' 69th birthday yesterday. So Commander
That's a
Riker is
special
69.
one. Yes, somehow that's fitting.
And I don't know if you know this, Sohel, but I didn't know if I wanted to call you Sohel or Starfleet Boy or
You
Starfleet Boims.
you
There's too many
can
options.
call me either one, whatever you like, except Florida Man. Limit that one if you don't mind.
Well, he wasn't born in Florida. He's a transplant.
That's true. That's true.
But this is the 1 year anniversary. I think tomorrow. It's the 1 year anniversary of hashtag TQIF. We started calling it TQIF, I think August 21st of last year, of 2020.
That's amazing.
So
Holy
that's 1
moly.
year of hashtag TQIF every Friday night.
While we're celebrating, Star Trek, the official Twitter account, just reached 500,000 followers, which baffled me. I thought Star Trek would have like millions. So we got to really boost Star Trek and make sure that that account gets like millions and millions of followers.
So there's just a lot to celebrate. And
Yeah.
those of you who listen to the podcast who don't watch us on YouTube, we always stream these live on Fridays at 7:30, and then Starfleet Boy does his After Dark show on one of his channels. He has multiple channels because he's that cool of a cat these days. Um, but we are going to discuss this episode. Kayshon, His Eyes Open. It's a lot of fun to have this weekly Star Trek back I see we have several people. I'm trying to say hi to everyone.
Yeah, hey
Boatwreck,
everyone.
Braxton, Jill, Pastel
Tass is
Pirate. So,
here. So cool.
nice, Tass. So if you are here, please feel free to comment and be part of the conversation as we discuss this episode. But yeah, let's just go ahead and give our opening statements. Sohel, what would you like to say just to kind of give a broad description of your reaction, your thoughts and feelings on Kayshon His Eyes Open, and then we'll go talk about it in greater detail.
I think just in broad strokes, I'll just say I was having fun from start to finish, and I've seen it like 3 times now, and it's still fun. In fact, it's more fun. Um, One of the reasons I look forward to coming here is because when I did my other live stream, it's more of a reaction, and I miss so much. And Lower Decks just has so much to appreciate, so much packed in that there's a lot to appreciate. So I'm looking forward to seeing where the season's going. I've got some ideas and theories from this one, so based on a little dialogue here and there, and I'm sure we'll talk about it when we get to those scenes. And yeah, I was like a little nervous last week like everyone else. But this episode has kind of got me back into the hype that the hype state that I was in about Lower Decks season 2 premiering, and I'm like, oh, now I think this season's gonna be wild.
You were pretty happy last week, though, as I recall.
Yeah, I gave it a high rating, but I was just nervous because like in the discussions you kind of like when as we all talk, like I hear differing opinions, and I was hearing more on the other side of like, oh, this is the premiere wasn't as exciting.
Yeah, you did have the most positive reaction out of anyone I discussed that episode with,
Right.
not just on the show, but anyone else. However, are you done? I was assuming you were done.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, no,
Okay,
totally. Thank you.
just making sure I wasn't cutting you off. Um, yeah. However, I am very thrilled with this week's episode. I really liked it. It was a great thing to follow up on the first episode of the season, which like we were saying, it was a little underwhelming for me. I don't think last week's episode was bad, but it didn't seem to be of the same caliber as most of that second half of season one. So this kind of feels like a little bit more of like a return to form. It showed that, oh yeah, that wasn't just like a fluke. That second half of season one, like this show has a lot of potential. They ain't ran it into the ground yet. So I was very happy. I loved the writing in this. I thought there was actually some really impressive editing, the way that they were able to take these two B stories and amp the stakes up in both and cut back and forth, and it really felt very even though they're kind of thematically not that similar stories, it's just like the rise and fall of the tension and the danger and everything paralleled each other really great, kind of connected those two things. And it was stuff like that's hard to do in like a 24-minute little animated thing. Speaking of the animation, though, it looks so gorgeous. The animation
Super
quality has
gorgeous.
improved. It's not just the ship. There's more character animation. I think the lighting, which has always been great, has gotten even more dynamic. So it is a sharp looking, slick show, and even more so now in season 2 than it was in season 1. There were some things that annoyed me in this episode, but they were all kind of contained like the last 2 minutes or so, which is kind of a unfortunate way to end the episode. But it didn't really hurt anything. I still overall had a blast with this.
uh let's get to it.
Well, I'm going to just break down the episode. We're going to take it kind of storyline by storyline, and we'll do the A story first, the Cerritos story with some of the new characters we get. Well, not new. I guess Jet isn't new, but Jet returns, and we get the new character of Kayshon.
He's so funny. Oh, that's not Kayshon.
Well, the actual A story here is that there is a mission to deal with Colonel Hawes, this collector, like a collector we saw in the Next Generation way back in the day.
And he's
Um,
the same species as Rivas Fajo, right?
I think so. He's definitely like that same style.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, he's died. He has like this big collection. The crew is going to be assigned to sort through it, catalog it, get all the dangerous stuff out of there, and we get our new character Kayshon, the Tamarian, or the
Yep.
child of Tamra. I always want to call him the children of Tamra. But yeah, he is the new member of the Cerritos crew, and we have Jet kind of filling in for Boimler on beta shift. Jet Manhaver, right? Is that how you say his last name? Or
I didn't
Manhaver?
catch that. Yeah, so I get
Yeah.
Manhaver, Manhaver. I like Manhaver. He's
That's
havering.
how the captions spell it, like Manhaver, but he says it real fast. He's like Manhaver to Cerritos or something like that before they
Okay.
lose communication. There's this rivalry with Mariner that I kind of enjoyed in the episode is, starting off at the very beginning. What do you think of like that opening with like the sonic showers?
At first I was like, "Whoa, communal sonic showers!" Like I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." Like things like that. I was like, but then when the gag started with like amping it up, I was actually gonna be like, "Oh no, come on, what are they doing?" But when their noses started to bleed, I lost my shit. I was cracking up. It was excuse me. They took a joke that I thought was gonna be like in somehow like just dumb, and they made it brilliant with that little touch at the end. It was awesome.
I like how they used the animation, and this is something that I don't think would have worked very well if they tried to do it in live action, but the way that they used the animation of the sonic effect to blur the nudity, it was
Yeah,
funny, kind of like that funny self-aware way. And
yeah,
I kind of
totally.
prefer like this kind of self-awareness than like characters like saying things we say in real life as fans, like call people red shirts, or stuff like that, or say like Khan had that amazing chest, like this felt a little bit cheekier,
Hmm.
a little bit more clever use of like the meta storytelling.
I love the sonic showers. This kind of made me want to take a sonic shower. It looks like it's fun.
I don't think it would ever be as refreshing as like a natural like hot shower, you know but
It's true, but I
we
just
have all these
imagine you get
actors now
different.
that are talking about like how they don't take showers anymore. Like all these actors are saying like, oh yeah,
It's
like I
funny
don't
you
bathe
brought
my
that up.
kids, I
Though.
don't take showers.
I saw that.
So I don't know, I guess we are like moving away from showering in general. I was
uh,
surprised to hear that, but
So on paper, sonic showers sound awesome because they probably clean you just as good as water does, and I imagine the sensations are different. Like that, you probably get some sort of rush from it at those, especially at those intense levels. I guess it turns into pain, but but I don't know. I kind of want to try it. Like I don't know if you've ever used those belt things that like jiggle you like, and they're not used anymore, but have you ever seen them like at the gym?
I've seen them in like movies and stuff, but I don't know, I think it'd be more like a sonic toothbrush than a
It
jiggler belt.
might feel nice having your whole body rubbed with sonic sensations. That's all I gotta say. They are scrubbing though. This is
But yeah, that was a cool way to kind of show this competitive nature, and also that Mariner is missing Boimler. When she's like, "Oh well, Boimler usually leaves that stall open," and he's like, "Well, I'm not Boimler," and they're just they're like real competitive, throughout this entire mission that they're on. And it's just like a cool idea. It's like, okay, this is a story that would be told in a classic Trek show where, okay, we would have like Geordi or Worf or someone take like a bunch of security dudes or some like unnamed lower deck characters off to do like some little mission. And so yeah, we're just seeing it from like their perspective because their
yeah.
leader gets turned into a puppet. And this collection room though is just packed full of Gorn eggs. We're gonna have fun trying to go
Gorn
through these
egg
later in the
fest.
show.
Yeah. Are you gonna are you by any chance you're gonna use the Aaron's list?
Yes.
That's
So
excellent.
more on that later.
Yes.
Uh, but one of the funny things that they add, it's not actually something from previous Trek, was an invention of the show, was the Kalis fornication helmet,
It's
which
amazing. I need one.
looks awfully a lot like the Peter Jackson
Sauron.
movie
Yeah,
Sauron.
it looks
So
like Sauron's helmet. Certainly. It certainly does.
But yeah, that becomes a plot point later. We don't know it at first, but the the commissioner of the Collectors Guild, Chairman Siggy, I think is his name, who is the one who's like employing Starfleet. So I guess they established, there's like a whole like little organization of these collectors, and I guess
Yeah, and
sometimes they're on good terms with Starfleet, or at least like they can agree to like do like these joint missions, for the good like public safety. You don't want anything dangerous to get out there. But yeah, Ziggy, like he really wanted that fornication helmet, and he triggered the booby traps, and the painting comes alive and turns poor Kayshon into the puppet.
that was a great scene, and the puppet Ray. Uh, I was like, "What the heck's happening?" I thought they were gonna kill him in the like when I first saw it. I thought, "What?"
I would
Like
have been
he's
disappointed if they kill. I was really hoping he'd be a recurring character, so I was
yeah, me
happy that he
too.
made it through the episode.
Me too, totally. And I think from the little teaser, now that I think of it, you could probably speculate that he's in more. But yeah, just for a moment, I was like, "What? What is this show doing right now?" And then when he turned into the puppet, I was just like in stitches. And I also want that puppet. It's like the best thing ever.
And I like that they gave him like a little heroic moment. And as more than that, I should go back to like when he first comes onto the bridge, when he's speaking to his Tamarian language, the way that they play that, like, oh, are they not going to be able to communicate with this guy? And then he's like, oh no, I'm sorry, like my universal translator is just having a little bit of a hard time. I was like, okay, cool. Like he's actually going to be like a functional person of the crew, a functional person in Starfleet. And then we see him like kind of chit chat with the crew, with Jet, when he has like that more like the suck up of Tanagra moment, or like when he talks to Tindy about like, oh, maybe he enjoyed the isolation here, and then he tries to save Tindy from the puppet ray, and that's actually the reason why he got zapped. So he had like a little heroic beat. So yeah, like I like this
Yeah.
character, and I like that he has like a little bit, not a ton of depth, but there is certainly a degree of dimension added.
Yeah, I agree. I like the character. He seems like he's gonna be a really good character, and he is a warrior, so that's kind of cool that they brought like someone who knows how to fight. So we haven't seen him fight yet, but I'm sure we'll see it at some point. But yeah, he's an amazing addition.
And Boat Wreck in our audience is saying that the references are getting tiresome, much like his complaints. I don't think he's complained about Lower Decks enough for it to be tiresome. But I definitely can understand that. Like when they first started showing glimpses of this episode in the season trailer, and they showed all the paintings on the walls and the little fin of the inner light satellite and stuff that we'll go over in the Gornags. I was like, oh man, like they're still doing this. They're still trying to like pack in all like these little visual callbacks. But the way that like some of these are like such obscure things that really made me scratch my head. I was like, okay, well, you did put in some effort. And there's one really cool one that we'll talk about when we
Just
get
one,
to it.
only one. I can't wait to hear which
One
one it is.
especially cool one.
The show. I have a lot of faith in the makers of the show, but like with anything, you run the risk of overplaying a gag or overplaying a feature or something like that. But I think they're gonna like balance it out in the rest of the season. But we'll see what happens. After all, like from what we learned from season one, Lower Decks is not just an Easter egg show. It's not just a reference show. It's not just a parody. It kind of somehow doing all these things at the heart of it. It kind of transcends all that, and it's a real Star Trek show. Like it's like a legit story that I'm enjoying following, and I'm enjoying like these characters, and I'm enjoying like the world building that they're doing. Even though it's in a comedic way, there's a lot of like amazing world building for Star Trek. So I appreciate the show a lot.
I don't know if there's that much world building. I take that back, because I was just saying, like, we have like the Collectors Guild.
Yeah, and then
But even
also
that, it's just kind of tacking some additional detail onto something that's previously been established.
well, the whole
Uh,
second contact fleet is a whole edition, a new edition that I
yeah,
don't remember. I mean, like that's like something, and then just like the perspective too of the lower deckers, like it's done this is like a new kind of perspective. I think again, it is done in a parody or a fun in a funny fashion, but at the heart of it, it does deal with like a lot of real things. Like last season, there was a lot about workers' rights and unions and things like like just there's a lot of like really great like how I appreciated how in season one it got me at least conscious about like is my company treating me fairly? Like based on the way the lower deckers are treated by Starfleet. Because Starfleet, especially in the TNG era, for me, I compare it to like work environments, like especially very familiar, highly technical work environments, which we have nowadays. I'm probably going a little too far with this, but but I think the show has a huge message and a huge heart, and I don't think it's lost track of that, at least not yet.
Well, one of the unique things about the show, that one of the reasons why I think it works as well as it does, is there aren't many, animated comedies like this that are, or at least not that I've been aware of, that I've been exposed to. They're like this high quality of animation and voice casting and voice acting that has this sheer optimism to it, and it kind of like celebrates these people, kind of outsider type characters, but like with their weird idiosyncrasies, and
Yeah,
like Tindy and Rutherford like nerding out over Starfleet stuff, or Boimler giving a speech that we'll talk about in a minute about how he liked the string quartets on the Enterprise, or Mariner being kind of Kirk like, willing to bend the rules for the greater good, and having like the judgment to do that, and perhaps growing to be responsible for when she calls things wrong, like we'll talk about a little bit in this episode. Yeah, and it doesn't have like that cynicism of, I'm not saying like Rick and Morty's bad. I actually have not watched much Rick and Morty at all. I've seen a little bit of the first two seasons, but it's just like that has a very like, it's a smart show, but it has a very like dark cynicism and a very dark sense of humor. And I like that there is a show like Lower Decks that presents that Star Trek optimism in a very unique fashion.
Well said, Fathery.
And yeah, there's not many. Like I was saying, it's also a
It's
rare
also
animated comedy that
I mean,
checks all those boxes.
I feel like someone's gonna know the answer to this, but to me, it feels like the first time like a franchise, quote unquote, is parodying itself, like in like a serious, consistent way, like not just like a one-off special or something like that. Because Doctor Who certainly has parodied itself with with like works like they do for the Red Nose Day and stuff like that. But
it's like built around that idea of doing.
Yeah.
I mean, like like
Yeah.
in the Star Trek Into Darkness, when Kirk is like telling Chekhov, you better go find a red shirt, Mister, and it plays like the ominous music. But this is like an entire show of stuff like that.
Of stuff like
not
that,
just,
yeah.
not just like a moment.
And I can't think of anything else like that. It's amazing.
Let's talk about like this conflict between Jet and Mariner, because I think that was kind of the core of the A story here, and I liked that it allowed them to show like some growth through Mariner, and also it showed like the team being like really competent, trying to work together when they're like, Tindy, shoot at this, and Rutherford, pass me the puppet, and all of that. And it's the only like negative stuff that happens in this episode doesn't come from like any of the characters being incompetent. It comes from the commissioner being a greedy jerk, and that wonderful Gornag of the Spock 2 skeleton that we'll talk about. But yeah, that's a 50-foot Spock clone, 50-foot tall Spock clone skeleton. It kills this guy.
He's called, what do they call him? Mega Spock in the episode? I can't. It's been so long since
he's called Spock 2.
Spock 2. Okay,
that's like the sequel. The scientist dude is like, behold, I give you Spock 2. But
we should watch that. I mean, that's awesome. It's amazing.
When I saw that on screen, that giant if it was a comic book, it would be like a 2-page splash is what we would 100%. Call it. But yeah, it's just good. Just like that wide skeleton shot. I was watching this at like 2 a.m. alone in my living room, and I was just sitting there in my recliner, and I yelled out, "Oh my god!" because I knew exactly what it was, and it was morbid, but also I know a little bit behind the scenes of this actually, and I'll
mention share it. Sure. One quick note on that though. So I subscribed, of course, because I did last year, to the T-shirt collective, the subscription.
Hmm.
And while I'm happy with the second shirt, I really wish it would have been the Spock, because that would have been perfect for
But what is
Spock
it?
2 for Halloween. It would have been so amazing.
Tell us what it
To
is then.
oh, it's Boimler. It's the dual. It's two Boimlers. So it's the two Boimlers. It's twin Boimlers, which I'm fine with. But I would have loved. Maybe they'll do a special release of for Halloween of Spock 2's bones.
Well, when they were showing the trailer for the season and it showed them like shooting or being shot at by like these flying disc things, I thought those were
The
like the stuff
Roombas.
that they train with on the holodeck sometimes, where there's there's
Ah.
floating like Seven of Nine and Janeway did it, and Picard and Guinan when on the holodeck they were shooting at these things. But no, I guess they're like actually like Roombas. They're like vacuums because they like I guess they clean the collection as well as defend it, and they kind of look like Roombas. But yeah, like when Mariner has that line, like, "Oh, what are they gonna do? Suck us to death?" And then it starts like sucking her cheek, and she's like, "Oh my god, they're gonna suck us to death!" And we got the bone barricade to keep them out, and that's where I love that they took the time to have this moment here. This is why this episode works so well for me. Is one, I think like the jokes are smart. Two, I think like they do show the people being competent and good at their job on a level that kind of like Lower Decks doesn't always do for an entire episode. But here, when Mariner shows character growth, that's one of the things I wanted the most in the season was character growth. When she tells Jet, this is all my fault. I should have just thought for 2 seconds before I pissed off those Roombas or whatever they are. And then Jet saying like, "No, well, we were following my plan," and that's when they get the conclusion of like, "Oh, maybe neither of us should take charge. We should try to include Rutherford and Tindy," and then they're the ones who come up with a solution. Another classic callback of using the Excalibur bones to secrete acid, which is very convenient, but it does, lead them to their escape. But there's not much else on the A story that happens, but just the visuals were so like overwhelming in a good way.
Yeah.
I love that collector room, and I can understand if someone does find that to be tiresome. But for me, it was just kind of a thrill to see all of that, and then the action was well animated, and then like the growth we get in Mariner. I had a really good time, and the funny line of what do you tell the captain in the situation? And then Tindy just without missing a beat, Kayshon when he became a puppet. You know. Uh, but yeah, do you have anything else to add to the Ace story?
No, I think you said it really great. And I know we're gonna probably we want to save some time for the Gorn eggs, because I feel like that's where the bulk of the thoughts I have are. So yeah, no, but that whole part was really cool. I do like the B plot a lot better, which we're going into next. But yeah, that was all cool.
Um, yeah, the B story is really good. I liked both of them a lot. Well, one other little comment I want to add in here is just like Tindy's remarks about the Kalis fornication helmet when she's like, "Oh well, safety first." When she sees, I mean, we know from past Star Trek stories that Klingon sex can be a little rough, but uh, without going into too much detail on that, just when she sees the dude, he was trying to sneak out with the Kalis helmet, and she's like, "Oh, you pervert!" And then she's like immediately like, "Oh, no judgment," like she was like mad at the guy, but then she's like, "Oh, I don't want to kink shame him." I don't know. I just like that little bit of consideration with Tindy. She's a real
I think
sweetheart.
yeah, she's a sweetheart. And tonight on Starfleet Way After Dark, I declared that we might do a live fan fiction, a fanfic for Kalis's fornication helmet.
Oh
Just
well,
saying.
if you want to lose subscribers, that's one way to do it. Or I don't know, maybe there's a crowd that's into fornication helmet live streams. I guess we'll find out tonight.
It won't be the whole episode. It'll just be a segment.
Well, let's talk about this B story then on the Titan. How exciting was that to spend like half an episode? I guess it's
Yes.
like half of a short, half hour show, but still, half of this story on the U.S.S. Titan I thought was really exciting.
Yeah, totally. And it's a great looking ship. Um, I was never fond of the Luna class from like the few times I'd seen illustrations of it, but seeing it
Oh,
in
really?
action, I think, yeah.
I love this ship class. I think it looks beautiful from every angle. I love the design that went into it. I was always frustrated that such a beautiful ship was just like on like some book covers, and in Star Trek Online, it's like I need this to be a real ship on screen.
Well, I never, again, I guess I never spent enough time with it, enough to like
Mm.
appreciate it. But yeah, especially this angle you chose. That's a gorgeous, that's a beautiful profile. You know, like yeah, it's a sweet ship. I would not mind having that in my collection. Speaking of
You should.
collectors.
I have the Eagle Moss of it. Actually,
Oh,
it
okay,
was
cool.
the only non-canon ship I wanted in my fleet, but it's canon now, so
Yeah, yeah, it certainly is official.
and you should check out the Trek Yard videos they've done. They've actually like brought the designer. You know, this was like years ago, but they brought the designer on. He talked about like the elements he borrowed from previous ships and stuff. So really, if you're into ship porn, you know, definitely do a deep dive on the Luna class on the Titan, because there's a lot of good content out there. If you're into that, some people don't care about the ships; they just care about the stories and the characters, and they're probably like, "Shut up and move on." But in Tex Trek, we go deep. We talk about it from all different angles. You know.
Well, well, and to be fair, like the shows of this era don't seem to care about the ships except Lower Decks. I think Lower Decks is really like, especially this season with the Miranda class like beauty shots that we got, and like kind of like the highlight of that. Just all through the Cerritos, there's always they always take a moment. Like the beginning of this episode was like a nice moment to just like see the Cerritos. It starts on that, and I did rewatch Star Trek Discovery recently, and there is definitely like ship love, but it's like not the same. It's like very quick. Yeah,
they don't do the establishing shots as much as we're used to from previous Star
yeah,
Treks,
yeah. Well
because
said.
it's a little faster paced show. You know, they don't do like those slow lingering shots, just like the ship cruising around in space. But that's what
Right.
we like. That's what we expect from the decades of old Star Trek we had.
Yeah.
The again, talking about like how good the animation is, I think that opening battle with the Packleds looked great, even though it was only a few seconds long. It was just enough time to show Boimler being in
Look at
over his
that.
head, but I like that they didn't have like Boimler like being an idiot. You know, he's
Yeah.
screaming, he's scared, but he's not like, when Riker's like Boimler attack pattern Delta, which I think is what Luke Skywalker did at the Battle of Hoth. But anyways, is like Boimler is like still able to like pilot the ship. He doesn't drop the ball or anything. This
Yeah, he
whole
nails
episode,
the
he's very
maneuvers
confident.
exactly. Yeah, like
Yeah.
as far as the execution. Oh, look at that. That's pretty. Okay, sorry. Pretty. um, yeah, he's not incompetent, but he's freaking out. Like it's not his. He's way out of his comfort zone for
Yeah.
sure.
And even when we have like that briefing room scene, if you're familiar with Star Trek, especially Next Generation, you've seen a lot of these conference room sequences. He's kind of being a little bit kind of being a little bit of a dork, like writing everything down. And Riker's like, you don't have to write everything down, but he still doesn't like really like goof up or anything. He's just a guy who's like
Yeah.
trying too hard. But they reined it in, and I like that.
Shout
Uh,
out to Lower Decks for showing us the first Captain Riker story. Like this is the first time we're seeing Captain Riker in command and doing his thing. And you know
yeah,
what? Like it was pretty
that's
reverential. It's fun.
canonical, anyways.
Yeah.
Like the book
Yeah.
readers are yelling, like,
No,
I
I
got a whole
understand. No,
series
I get it.
of
I know
Titan
what you're saying, but
novels.
like on screen, just I'm just saying on screen, like, like it made it to on screen. It's just like nice to see it. And Jonathan Frakes did a great job of like voicing it. I felt like I don't know, I guess I sound like a broken record, but it's funny, but it's reverential at the same time. Like the way they do it, it's just like the mission briefing seems serious. Like, and there are funny moments, and of course like the goofy looks and the Boimler boiming up things. But but overall it's like a really solid plan. They're like trying to figure out who's behind the Packleds. Like there's a lot going on. There's
Yeah.
it's really cool.
And Mike McMahon's talked about that in season 1. He said that with Lower Decks, he had to make it super respectful of Star Trek and also look like Star Trek, because this show was going to be, first of all, it's going to be animated. There's going to be a cartoon, and it was going to be a comedy. So it's going to be completely different from any other Star Trek show. So in order to make it feel like Star Trek, in the areas where he could make it more like what we think of as Star Trek, he had to like dial it up, like, okay, like go all the way hard Star Trek here, because the rest of the show
So
is going to be
good.
so unconventional for Star Trek. And that
Yeah,
was very, very smart of him to have that awareness. Because, yeah, like in some ways that you could experiment in some of the live action shows, you probably shouldn't do that here, because this is already so far off the beaten path. You need to maintain that connection and recon- recognizability. What's the word there?
I
Rec-
think
uh,
that's I'm struggling with that, but I think I understand what you're saying, so I think you nailed it.
yeah,
Audience, help us
but
out.
just keep it recognizable where you can.
Yeah,
What we're talking
familiar.
about
Yeah,
here with they set up the pack leads seem to have a ringleader, a puppet master, someone who's pulling the strings, manipulating them.
yeah. And it's so hard to tell who it is because Pakleds are infamous for stealing technology. So, like, even though they have Klingon disruptors, we can't say for sure that the Klingons are behind it. The Pakleds may have just duped the Klingons and stolen that. So, it's going to be interesting to find out who it actually is.
But yeah, they're trying to weaponize Veruvian ore from the mines of Karzel 4. So we get this undercover shuttle mission to infiltrate the mines. And I liked the scene on the shuttle going down to the planet where the officers are kind of poking fun at the Enterprise from Next Generation, and Boimler's kind of sad, like hear them like
Yeah.
make fun of like how wussy the Next Generation was. But I don't. I love the Next Generation, but it does seem like to be like the show that so many people think is like the best ever, and to me, it's kind of the vanilla Star Trek. I'm sorry, but it's just
But okay,
to me, it's not as exciting as like the original series or Deep Space Nine or a bunch of other stuff.
that being said, I love TNG. It's like my core programming, and I was
Hmm.
laughing at this because it's so true. Like this is like this gag was great, but it's also genius in terms of like by doing this gag, I felt bad about liking it and laughing at it, but and then like I feel like so it made Boimler's speech land even heavier and like better later on in the episode. So
Yeah,
it's a good scene. It's just from
yeah,
a
it's a good setup
yeah.
to that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's not just like Boimler being like the wimp or whatever. Like he's actually the hero out of this group, out of this group of officers. And if you want to put the extra work to think about like this place in the Star Trek timeline, you got to keep in mind this is after the Dominion War. This is based on what we know about Picard, they might have like some Zotvash infiltration going on. This is
All
at a
right.
time when Starfleet is like more militaristic. Like the Borg were a big threat. They fought this Dominion War, and I kind of like the idea of the Titan being this badass tough warship, and Riker kind of wishing that he was doing the more exploratory stuff of the Next Generation.
I just got goosebumps when you said that because the whole this whole episode I was like, can we get a Titan show? Like I know it can't be live action, like the main star is a little older, but his voice is perfect. He could voice like it could just be like a different. I just want it. I know Lower Decks is awesome and I love comedy, but I would love a Titan show that's like more in the style of like Marvel's What If and shows like that. Like it'd be amazing.
Or like Prodigy,
Or Prodigy, yeah,
what
exactly.
Prodigy is going to be.
But
I kind of
made
like
for
the
adults. I
I
want an
kind of like the
adult.
Titan's place here. I kind of like the Titan being available for lower decks to use as they need. But sure, that would be cool. I would definitely watch that if they made it.
Yeah, like I props to Lower Decks again for bringing the Titan into it and Riker and all that. Like, so they deserve to own it. But I'm just saying, when Lower Decks is done with it, let's let's consider some more.
How cool is it, by the way, that if the Titan's supposed to be like this badass warship, that at the end of Star Trek Nemesis, when Riker gets promoted, like he says, like, "Oh, I'm taking the Titan to Romulus to help negotiate the new peace agreement or whatever."
Yeah,
It's like, okay, they just had like this major military battle with the Romulans and the Remans and all this stuff. So like the Federation is gonna send like a tough ship to go negotiate and put Riker
yeah,
there. So it's kind of like waving the stick
yeah.
at the Romulans. So we can retroactively throw that into the timeline and think about that. So I think that's cool.
It would be a beautiful arc to create like hodgepodge style because you already have kind of like Riker's end story in Picard, where he ends up. And so there's a wealth of places to fill in, and Lower Decks is doing that. Like I love that, and it was sad not to see Marina Sirtis return, but at the same time, there's a legit reason why she's not on the bridge and she might be gone. Is that it might correlate with when Thaddeus Riker was born, and she might be just in there, like taking care. She might have been like, "Will, this is too dangerous. I need to go back to Beta Z, and I need to like be with." My family there, and just until that is a little older, and then we can bring him back on the ship or
Oh
something.
yeah. I don't know why Troy is not in these episodes. They said a while back that Marina Sirtis wasn't going to be in season 2, so I wasn't expecting to see her. But maybe that is because they were thinking like, oh, that Thad kid is supposed to be born around this time. So I don't know. Is Troy pregnant? Is she not? Let's just not show her. That we don't have to deal with it.
Which is
I don't
fine.
know.
I think it's great. I think it's great, and I don't know. They might like drop a. We don't know we're just in the beginning stages. We're all speculating about what the rest of the season is. So I'm hoping there's something coming up.
Maybe the when they were writing, they're like, oh, we don't really have room for Troy to do anything meaningful, so let's just leave her out until we have like a good reason to bring her back to the show, or maybe Marina was busy. I don't know the reasoning. I'd be curious to find out. I just want to point out that Jill in the comments said that TNG is her favorite, and I know that's a lot of people's favorite. And I feel like kind of the weirdo for saying like that's kind of only like my third favorite Star. Well, kind of my fourth, depending if you count the animated series as part of TOS or not. But yeah, that's right. I would put the animated series above Next Generation. I know I'm the only person who would do that, but I love the original series. I love the animated series. They're kind of the same thing to me, but. Yeah, just to me, like the Next Generation, it's kind of like the vanilla Star Trek, though. It's like it's the least original. It's kind of like the default. It's like
Wow,
a little bit
the
more
least
generic.
original, Father. Thanks.
It is no, it is the least original. Like we talked about this before, but like the original series, it has like that '60s style. Voyager, that's the weird one. They're off in the Delta Quadrant. Deep Space Nine, they're on this crazy Cardassian station with this Ferengi bar. It's unlike any other Star Trek show. Discovery is certainly unlike anything else. Lower Decks, there's never been an animated comedy before. Prodigy is going to be something new and totally different than anything else before. Enterprise, they tried to go back and make like this new prequel show in a time period we'd never explored before. But yeah, Next Generation, it's a show in the 24th century on a ship called the Enterprise. So yeah, there's 3 other 24th century shows. Well, no, I guess there's like 5 now, but there's other shows like a ship called the Enterprise exploring the galaxy. It's just like, yeah, it's fine, being what it is. It's very good. It's a very great show.
I also like that there's precedence for there being different flavors in Star Trek starting from that era, because that kind of like helps people who don't like, what I mean? Like you have your TNG flavor, you have your DS9 flavor, you have your Voyager flavor, and you have your Enterprise flavor. They're all different flavors,
At the time, it was just proving like, look, you can do Star Trek without Kirk and Spock. You don't need them. This is a vast universe. You can do all kinds of stories.
Absolutely.
And then, Deep Space Nine took it a step further. Be like, oh yeah, you don't even need an Enterprise. You can do it on a space station. So yeah, it's perfect for what it is. It's just, to me, it's just not one of my. It's not my favorite show.
That's okay. We're not here to convince you, Fathery.
I like my DS9 more, and I like my original series more. But we'll move on and talk about the minds of the undercover mission to Karzil 4 and the gung ho Titan officers. I loved when Boimler is trying to convince the miner that he's a fellow miner. He's like, dude, I can tell you're Starfleet. That cracked me up. And
I like that he says it's because you have soft, clean hands or something like that. Oh, yeah. It was like really funny.
The Packleds had, or the leads, that first officer lady, she was like, watch out, we have a lead over here. Like in the captions, it was like apostrophe LED. So it's like a slang term for Packleds. Yeah, they had a collection of what looked like beef jerky in Cheeto Puffs,
Yeah, what is
like
this?
disguised under their armor. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you disguise that as
They're
like
hiding it
as
because
a
it's their
person?
treasure. It's their true treasure.
Then why don't you
Packlets
like
are
put it
so
in a locker or something? Like,
packlets.
why like stack up your armor around it?
Or maybe they
If
thought with
anything, that's
these
going to draw attention to it. That's going to draw attention to your
Starfleet,
snack
you think we're
stash.
dumb, but we got you with our stupid trap. No, I don't know. It was a bad packlet. I don't know what that was. But yeah, it is weird. But the packlets are just really effing weird.
Yeah, I love Packleds as being like scary and dangerous though, and like the
Because
buff
they're
voided
stupid
out
and you know,
Packleds.
can I just, I'm gonna get a little soapbox here because they're stupid and stupid is scary and dangerous as we've learned from like the real world. uh and that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
I'll get off my
the
soapbox.
Packleds would be the Packleds right now would be like going really hard on like the anti-vax side of things.
100% they would be going hard on the anti-vax stuff. They we'll leave it at
But
that.
this is when Boimler shines, when everyone's
Yeah,
like
this is
okay, I guess
awesome.
we're gonna go out like badasses, and Boimler's like, no, you know what's really badass is being like a big nerdy Starfleet guy, and I liked that Riker was doing all that wacky stuff on the Enterprise and all the artsy fartsy stuff, and it's kind of like a defense of that side of the franchise, and kind of a reinforcing that that's an important core to Star Trek identity, to Star Trek's identity. That's
I totally agree. Sorry. Sorry, I
that
was
makes
on
it
mute.
so easy to forgive, like these guys being kind of jerks, about the next generation, is when they're like, oh yeah, like I got into Starfleet because I wanted to be a Moss expert, or because there was one guy really liked beaming, he says.
It was an awesome scene because it plays off of that thing you said earlier about how like these guys have seen nothing but like hardship and war, right? Like so they didn't start out that way. It makes sense. They're like they started out like the Moss thing was just genius. Like it was just, they started out as like wanting to be scientists and explorers, and it's so true. And in a weird way, like that's the thing is like the Titans on the front lines and everything's still kind of honky dory in Boimler's world because the second contact fleet isn't out there on the front lines like protecting the borders of the Federation. It's in the Federation establishing Wi-Fi and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, we're here to set up your internet.
We're here to set up your internet, make sure everything like so Boimler still in a weird way, like this is again maybe I'm going too far with the analysis here, but it's a cool juxtaposition of like those who protect versus those who live the life, like, and that's what Boimler's reminding them of what they're protecting, and it's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, and there is like that military side of Starfleet, but it's
Right.
so much more than that. And yeah,
And if I may
he's
just
reminding
say,
them of that.
yeah, and if I may just say, like, it's cool that Star Trek keeps asserting that they're not a military force. Like, they do say things like peacekeeping, throughout the dialogue in the different modern
Yeah, they
shows.
flat out say it in Star Trek Beyond. Scotty
Yeah,
is like, we're not a military organization.
right, exactly. And I love that Star Trek keeps doing that. But the fact of the matter remains that there is a portion of their duties that requires security and safety and protection, and
They
that branch
yeah, they
is
provide military services for the
right
Federation.
for the Federation, exactly. And so that branch is kind of like a branch that doesn't get to have the fun, right? And you see it illustrated here beautifully.
And again, it's that character growth where they don't have Boimler be the dweeb he was in the beginning of season
Yeah.
1. When he's getting harassed by that cow spider, or when he's crying in the alley in Envoys. But no, he's not only the guy who is kind of like the heart and soul of like the squad, and he's the one who kind of reminds them of their true like Starfleet values. They want to be more meta again, their Star Trekian values, but also he has the brains to save the day here and rescue everyone and get through the transporter interference, and beam everyone up. And that's also a really funny audio gag with when he's being beamed and he's kind of like stuck going like back and forth. and you hear his like screaming cut in and
It's
out.
like
Yeah, that was really that was using a very standard Star Trek. Well, I don't want to say Star Trek convention because that's that would be confusing. It was a very like standard Star Trek device
trope
or
or
mechanic or
device, yeah.
trope, whatever you want to call it. It's just the way that, the transporter sounds and everything, and yeah, having it fade in and out like that. I don't know.
It's funny.
It just
It's
cracks you
funny.
up when you hear it.
It's funny also that Boimler's just like he got into a transporter accident last season too, and like
Oh yeah, when he
it's
was
like
all phasey.
yeah, he's phasing. So it's like it's very fitting that this
Much ado
character.
about Boimler. Yeah, he
So
doesn't
yeah,
have a good time with transporters, does
no,
he?
he's
And then here where he's transporter duplicated.
yeah.
So
This was genius because it really solved and it created a wonderful solution for a huge conundrum as far as I'm concerned.
well, that's actually where I had a problem with the episode. And
Oh,
it's not a huge problem, but it's that thing that happens where you think up something, you kind of forecast or predict something, and then what the show actually does is good, but it's not as good as what you imagined. That's why I try to not like. I
what was
try
your
to not like
forecast? Do you want to say? Do
theory
you
craft.
want to remind us what you were gonna think was gonna happen?
I was thinking that maybe Boimler decides he's not ready for the
Oh,
Titan,
right.
and he says he wants to go back to the Cerritos, and then Riker encourages him to step back down and tells him, look, I turned down promotions all the time. When I was rising through the ranks, I stayed on the Enterprise, for 7 seasons, and then I stayed on the next Enterprise for a couple of movies, and all that time, I should have been accepting a promotion according to everyone else, but I knew I wasn't ready.
In a weird
So I
way,
get it.
Fathery, and no pun intended, this is the best of both worlds.
I mean, it does allow them to do more stuff with the Titan. I can't imagine that they're just going to write off this other Boimler and
No, I think he's gonna
Riker.
come up
We're gonna
again.
see him again.
That's one of my predictions is we haven't seen the last of William Boimler.
Oh, yeah,
No,
yeah, and
it's
that was
like-
funny that he takes Riker's name. And
I
just
love
let me
it.
comment, I love the look of the Titan interiors. It's very like one of my favorite eras of Star Trek is kind of like the late '90s when
Yeah.
a lot of like the Rick Sternbach and John Eves designs were just on fire. Like the Enterprise E, the
Yeah.
Prometheus, the Nova class. The Titan is obviously inspired by that type of design philosophy, and I love Riker's ready room. I love seeing the records. There's some gourd eggs in here that I'll talk about in a moment. But yeah, and then I don't really get why like their personality seems to have become a little divergent, but I don't know. Maybe that's something they'll bring up again.
I think that's something they'll bring up, but I definitely think that's like a kind of like nod to TOS's is it the enemy within? No,
Yeah,
what
there's
am I
the enemy
thinking?
and then the next generation transporter split. What
Right.
happened to Riker?
And
By the
Thomas
way, I
is
love that. And
definitely
he's like, I heard this tune before. I like that. I didn't like hearing him say warp factor to 5, 6, 7. I was like, okay, I liked that the first time you did it, but it'll get old if you keep saying that.
Yeah, it
So
did get
please go for it.
interrupted though, which is funny. Like
No, it
he
needed
was
to be.
they did like cut the gag, which was funny. I thought they were like kind of in joking about the very same thing. Look at those records. Oh, we're gonna talk about it in the Cornex. Anyways, but to me, Thomas Riker, but for a different reason because he had a whole different set of experiences than William. But Thomas Riker's a little different, so I think it's keeping in the tradition of that idea of two halves of oneself being split apart by the transformer. I can't speak. Transporter, transformer.
Or maybe he's part of a pack-led plot. We don't know that he was a transporter.
We don't know,
He just
but they
came up in
couldn't
that
have.
shuttlecraft.
They couldn't have put it together so quickly. Those pack leads,
What if their puppet
those leads,
master was onto something?
It's true.
Maybe William Boimler is the puppet master.
There's a lot of clues as to what William's fate might be in the trailer. I don't know. I think you don't like talking about that stuff, or you don't like discussing it, because you don't watch the teasers and the trailers, right?
Right. Yeah. I try to come into everything as fresh as possible and just let the story hit me and wash over me and.
I have some ideas. I have some theories based on some stuff I saw in the trailer, but I won't go into them here, just in respect of you.
And as I mentioned a moment ago, like when I do theory craft, I end up disappointing myself. So that's why I try to avoid it at all costs.
Good job.
But yeah, anything else on the B story before we talk about the ending?
I feel like we could go on and on just about the Titan and Riker and everything there. It's so rich with details. So we'll save some of those things, I guess, for the Gornag sequence. But yeah, I was just really delighted by this. And the more I watch it, the more things I catch. And again, like you said it beautifully when you said like they really captured the essence of that the sovereign class era, if you will, or like the era with Sternbach and stuff like that. So I was very pleased with it. It just felt right, and it was just a lot of fun too.
The one thing I'll add is that I don't really buy. Why does he have to be demoted? I get, okay, you don't have room for him on the ship. You have a slot back on the Cerritos he can be transferred to. Why does he have to take a step back in rank and become an ensign again? That does not make sense. Like,
Yeah,
like the
that's
Starfleet not have like room for any lieutenant junior grades anywhere. They're like, we're at our lieutenant junior grade quota. We can't promote anyone else right now. We're at max
right.
capacity. You got to bump them down to an ensign. Like
Yeah,
that's
I
crazy.
agree. It doesn't make sense, but this one I just file under the playing for the laughs thing. Like it's just like one of those things where
Did you
load
laugh at that? Because I didn't think it was that funny either.
really, that's why I laughed at it because it was for the same reason that you just said. I laughed because it was so absurd. Like it was that kind of a laughter. Like what? Like that's insane.
This whole
Like
episode,
that's
it
like.
had so much growth, and it wasn't like sad sack
But
Boimler. And now we're kind of hitting the reset button, right? We're kind of hitting the reset button,
I don't
and
think you could. I don't think you need to correlate rank with growth. But we'll see what happens in the next few
right,
episodes.
he's still becoming like that sad sack who like he doesn't win at the end of the day. He's got to be
He's
like Charlie
different.
Brown
No,
with the football yanked away. He
there's
had
a
like this
different.
big victory on the mission, so I feel like they're kind of undercutting that by giving him the demotion.
I think Boimler's gonna keep surprising us. I think at the end, I read that scene further along at the end when they reunite. As I saw him a little different, he was a little bit more confident. Like, earlier I critiqued that he didn't grab a chair for Jet, but there's that part of Boimler that we're not used to. Like, you would think that Boimler would be the one to go out of his way to say like, no, no, you guys hang out, I'll come back. But in this case, he kind of asserted his place with the group, and he like said, we'll get, like I'm sure we'll talk about that scene in more detail. But to me, that I read it differently, like upon a subsequent watching, where I think he is different and he is that growth is still going to be there. But yeah,
The
I
growth is
agree.
still there, but he's still like they undercut his big victorious
Yeah.
moment by giving him the demotion at the end.
Maybe, yeah, it's true. I agree with that. But like what would happen if he's a lieutenant, right? Like he goes into a different like, kind of social circle on the Cerritos, and that might be
Well,
interesting to
there might have been a
play at
story to
that.
tell there,
Yeah,
right?
that might have been a story to tell there. True enough. But yeah, I still didn't mind. I just think they played it for laughs and I kind of brushed it off. But you're right, it's not logical.
But I want to see them back together, so I forgive it. And like I said, I really like this episode. Just a few annoying things that happened here at the end that bothered me. Pastel Pirate is saying they will have different number of pips, right? She's asking a question. Yeah, if you're an ensign, you have one gold pip.
Yeah,
If you're a lieutenant junior grade, you have one gold and then one black pip,
black. Yeah.
or a gold one with a black circle in it. But
Center, yeah.
at least the I guess to close off on the Titan story, it ends on a positive note for Boimler, where he still has earned the respect of
Of
those
the crew.
upper deckers.
Yeah.
They were like the senior staff. We have if you look at their pips, speaking of pips, we're gonna have a lot of
Yep.
pip talk here at the end. But they're a commander, lieutenant commander, and a lieutenant
Lieutenant.
senior grade.
Senior
So
grade, yeah.
and yeah, when we
Which
have that beautiful Titan shuttle bay that Boimler departs from, and I like those Titan shuttles. They have like really cool looking nacelles that kind of match the Titan herself. It's just a really cool ship. It really does look like a more advanced, badass, high tech place to be compared to that goofy, clunky Cerritos, which I love for very different reasons.
yeah.
And
Totally.
Boatwreck in the comments says Boimler will continue to be subjugated. I don't know. They did seem to like really grow him a lot in this
Subjugated.
episode. So I don't think he's going to be like like a little whipping boy. In fact, this last scene, they kind of like as a joke, they kind of have him like going like fetch their drinks and stuff, but it felt very like playful and kind of bantery and stuff. Like, oh yeah,
I
I guess I owe y'all one for abandoning the ship. And let's talk about this end scene back on the Cerritos. We have the ending with corn pips and the big reset
street
button.
corn. I want to clarify something real quick. Just a little fun fact. I said Florida has street corn, but it's incorrect. It's actually I asked some of my fellow Floridians. It's a Miami thing. Where I live, we have a substantial Mexican population, and so that's why we have street corn in Miami.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of street corn in Texas. Like there's
Yeah.
actually a Pflugerville, Pflugerville. There's a flea market in Pflugerville, this town that's close to here. It has
That's
really good
cool.
street. Oh, and then there's one in Manor, which is also close to where I'm at, and they have really good street corn.
Maybe
But yeah, like if you go there, like no one speaks English, but like the corn is really good. They're gonna
that's
have like that
rad.
little the red chili powder stuff sprinkled on it. Uh, just like don't like ask the guy any questions in English because he's just gonna like look at you like he's mad.
Well, Father, yo habla español, so I think we'll be okay when I come to visit.
Well, if you come, we'll go get some street corn from the flea
Can we put
market.
him on as pips? That'll be great.
Well, before we dive into like the stuff with Jet and the Pips, let's talk about Maligmo, the therapist,
Miligmo,
who's
yeah,
voiced by Paul
Miligmo,
F.
Miligmo,
Tompkins.
who's the co-host on the official Star Trek podcast with
Yes, with Tawny
Tawny
Newsome,
Newsome.
who
Yeah,
plays Mariner, and
yep,
they're really good friends in real life, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I saw that on Twitter when someone was like, "Hey, Tawny, you should have your friend Paul F. Tompkins be on Lower Decks." And then Paul F. Tompkins was like, "Yeah, I'd love to be on that show." And then Mike McMahon commented like, "Okay." And now, like a couple years later, he's like, "Oh yeah, he's actually on the show." So it was fun, like watching that play out.
Apparently, he's
Oh,
going to voice other characters this season, according to the pod. He kind of dropped that hint on there, so I'm
okay.
excited to see if I recognize his voice or whatever. But I wanted to mention this earlier, and I'm glad you brought up this image because it was kind of heartwarming to see Miglimo sitting in the counselor spot on the Cerritos because it has a similar three chair. You
Yeah,
know,
he's in like the Troy seat.
he's in
Like,
the Troy seat, and it just like kind of warmed my heart to see that that like structure was there.
well, the reason why I wanted to mention him now is because he's kind of bothering Dr. Tiana, our Kayshon doctor, when he's playing with the Kayshon puppet in sickbay.
They're totally gonna F.
I don't know about that. I mean, she's probably still heartbroken with Shax, you know.
Oh,
She's
that's
probably
true.
still
That's
like
true.
getting
That's
over the
true.
what she call it, the big Bajoran beefsteak or whatever.
Yeah, she
Uh,
did. That's true.
but I just like the way that they look in animation. You know, it's kind of like that cartoon thing of like cats and birds like don't get along. Like
Oh, that's
Sylvester is
right.
always trying to eat Tweety
That's
Bird
right.
type
That's.
thing. So I would love it if there's just kind of like this
I didn't
natural
catch that, but now
antagonism.
that you mention it, yeah, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
like Tiana is just kind of like always mean to Maglimo. I would love that. I think that would be really funny.
Oh my god,
If
they're gonna.
Mariner
I think they're gonna do that. That's amazing.
Mariner and the Andorian Jennifer like don't get along, I want that same relationship
That's
between
right.
Tiana and Maglimo
I love it.
or Meglimo. Or they've said it
Miglimo.
differently. Like the way
I think
Tiana
it's
pronounced it was
Miglimo.
different than
I
anyone
like the way
else.
I think Tanya Newsom says Miglimo, and so I'm gonna say it that way.
Or yeah, like yeah, they say it on the podcast a certain way, but
Miglimo,
I don't
yeah.
know. Maglimo is what makes
Migli,
sense to me.
Miglimo, Miglimo.
Miglimo.
Yeah.
But the joke here with the rank pips and the corn, that was an acknowledgement of all the animation errors they had in season one. I even saw one last week, that episode. I think it was Stevens,
Why do
like
you think that
his rank.
happens? That's really funny.
I don't know. I guess like the animators at Titmouse for some reason have like a hard time keeping that consistent. I don't know if because like the way that like they do it in the computer, they have to they take like the certain body types for each character and they have to kind of manually go in and like remove the pip or add the pip back on, and
That's
sometimes
funny.
like it just stays on there, doesn't get changed or what. But yeah, so they've established that anytime you see someone with the wrong number of pips, it just means it's a piece of corn, so don't worry about it. That was like Mike McMahon basically like yelling at people that like me that will complain about it on the internet. Be like, shut up, it's just corn. Leave it alone. Move on.
That's genius. That's what I'm gonna start saying to myself when I start nitpicking. Shut up, it's just corn.
But yeah, we have Jet has now become friends with Mariner in the group, but they're excited to see Boimler to the point that Jet is kind of a gentleman about it. He's like, "Oh, okay, I see that y'all have some catching up to do. I'll just like let y'all get back to it." And then they're like, "Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, get out of here." And they just kind of
This,
brush him off.
this was so rude, and like I said, my first reaction was like, "Come on, guys! Like that's not very like Star Trek of you."
Yeah, but
It's
they're
like,
excited in the heat of the moment, and they do take the time to show us Jet hanging out with some other people. Right at like the final shot of the episode, I think. So he's Jet is okay. He's gonna be fine.
it's
He's
true.
he's probably a popular dude on the Cerritos. But yeah, it was cool to see Mariner and Boimler happy to be reunited. That their little friend squad is all back together again, and I like that they're it seems like I was kind of complaining about hitting the reset button, but I like that they are going to kind of switch back to friend mode, and maybe they'll even be like more friendlier now than they were in season one. They had like some an adjustment period where they're getting used to each other. I think by the way, like when the season ends, it shows they're a little closer than they were at the beginning. Even early on, we see Mariner. Yeah, she's giving Boimler a hard time, but she's still trying to like boost his ego when they have that Ferengi mug them and stuff like that. So
Right.
I think that is a certain trajectory though of some character growth that I was talking about that I want to see. So yeah, it is kind of frustrating that they kind of move Boimler like 3 steps forward, then 2 steps backward, but it's possibly going to lead to some cool stuff with the dual Boimlers. I don't know what the end game for that is. I don't know what the big plans are for this show. There's still a bunch of like Mariner mysteries. I want to know why does she have a different last name than her parents? Where did she grow up? Where she saw this cool stuff that she learned. But yeah, as far as like their arc, I feel like in 12 episodes of this show, there is a clearer, more well defined arc that has had more growth than a lot of Star Trek main cast characters have
Yeah,
gotten on previous
yeah, I've heard
shows.
I've heard that. Father, whenever I get worried about Boimler, I just remember that we actually know his ultimate fate and that he's the inventor of buffer time and like celebrated in the future.
Yeah, but that's the far, far, far future. That's so far like they don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's my head canon of that. In the live audience, Springtime says Star Trek Jet is the
Springtime.
series that nobody asked for, but the world deserves. I don't know if Jet is that cool of a cat that he deserves his own show, like on the level like Star Trek Picard. But Star Trek Jet, that's kind of a big deal.
It
Isn't
is
it
a
weird that
cool
there's two
name.
Jets? There's two Jet. There's Jet Reno, and then there's Jet Manhaver.
Oh yeah,
Like
Jet's a
there's
great
two Jets in
name.
Star Trek.
That's actually a cool name. I didn't even realize that. That's right. I might name a future kid Jet. George Lucas's son, his name is Jet. So that I
Oh,
wonder if
the
that.
one that got shot by clones in Revenge of the Sith.
Yes, the very one exactly.
The other thing that annoyed me here at the ending, I said like I love this episode, but there were a few annoying things at the ending. Was the Kayshon pickup line of the Tamarian way of saying you've been running through my mind all day. But at least like the way that it ended, where he is like, I don't know, didn't make a big deal about it. And he's just like, Shaka when the walls fell, and takes a sip of
What
his drink.
what's the name of what was the actual Tamarian phrase that he says?
It was you're somebody at the race of something. It was a new line. There's a few there's a few Tamarian lines that they made up for this episode. Like that was one of them, and then I was Zinda, his eyes red. That was when he's getting zapped, turned into the puppet, and then the
Send his eyes
yeah, the like when he joined the Seven at the very beginning. So I like that we're gonna get more and more of that stuff.
Oddly, I don't know how this happened, but like the first time I watched this episode and when I reacted to it on Starfleet Boy, I forgot that he unpuppeted. Like I don't know why. I must have been just I watched it at like 3 in the morning or whatever, so I must have been just like zonked or whatever. And so when folks were talking about how it was, like I didn't realize. So when I watched it the last two times, I definitely get like that, he's got the wrong approach, but I chalk it up to he's like new. This is his first time. He's like a brand new member of the Federation. He's the first of his kind on the ship. Like his customs, the way that Tamarians flirt might be completely different than how like, most people in the Federation do. So I kind of, not that I agree with his behavior, and not that I'm saying it isn't wrong, but I kind of like excuse him a little bit, and hope he'll learn,
I mean,
how to
it's not
like,
like that big of a deal. It's just kind of an
yeah, I don't
annoying
agree.
way, I think, to it's an annoying way to start a conversation with someone, and don't use pickup lines like that. It's not gonna go well.
But I'll tell
Uh,
you what, it's super relatable because like even me, I try to be super considerate. Like when I started out like dating and meeting people, like I made the same kinds of mistakes where like I thought, oh yeah, like that TV show, the way that they come on to someone, that's the way you're supposed to come on to someone. And it was disingenuous and it wasn't like who I really am. And it took me a while to find like myself. So I think it's a relatable thing. I know it's cringy, but I don't think of it as like, cancel him worthy.
well, Boatrek is saying cancel him in the comments, but he's of course joking.
Yeah.
He admits that he's joking. He says he will likely
He'll
be a
likely
cool
be a
character.
cool
I
character.
think
Yeah,
so
yeah.
too.
Yeah,
And
I think so too.
Jill47 is letting us know that Jet Reno has two T's, so that's the distinction
Ah,
between the two
interesting.
jets. So,
Thank
but if
you,
you're talking
Jill.
about, yeah, I love the recurring character Jet in Star Trek. You have to ask, well, is it one T or two T's? But just pointing out when we do see Kayshon, enjoying his drink at the end of the episode, you see Jet hanging out with some folks. So Jet is fine. He's got plenty of
Yeah.
friends on the Cerritos. So don't worry about Jet. Anything else on the episode before we dive into this plethora, this
No,
menagerie of Gorn eggs?
no, I think that we covered a lot here. I don't know if the audience has anything else that they want to talk about, but I feel like we nailed it. And having this discussion with you made me really appreciate the episode even more. So I'm excited to get to the corn eggs.
Yeah, it was a good one. Like I said, like a few annoying things kind of hit me in a back to back to back in a small span of time in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the episode, but forgivable considering how much I loved everything else. I'm very thrilled to be having weekly conversations about this show again. I
Yeah.
look forward to whatever. I have no idea what happens next week. No idea. And I'll
Neither
find
do
out
I.
Wednesday night at 2 a.m. here in Texas is when I watch it. So really looking forward to that. Well, okay, are you ready to get serious,
Yes.
Starfleet boy?
Yeah, I'm ready to get serious.
Is that Darkwing Duck? He's like, let's get serious. Okay, I feel like that. Okay, everyone, brace yourselves. If you have like those little belts from like Star Trek 3, those little seatbelt things, not seatbelts, with this armrest to kind of like fold over you. Everyone like strap down into that on the Excelsior Bridge.
Oh yeah,
We're
like
about to like
that,
go into
those things. Yeah.
transwarp. We're going.
By the way, that was
deep.
in the motion picture had those little slidey things too.
Yeah,
Kirk does that.
Star
Yeah.
Trek Into Darkness had like those belt things that came out of the chair and locked you down.
That's
So whatever
right.
you got, yeah. We're going deep and we're going hard right now. Are
Woohoo!
you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Here we go.
Okay, first Gorneg, we have the Sonic Showers. Sonic Showers first introduced, speaking of Star Trek the Motion Picture, is introduced there with Ilea. We also saw B'Elanna using one in Star Trek Voyager. The
Oh, I wish you had that
Collectors.
screen cap. That's a hot screen cap of B'Elanna. I'm sorry, just saying.
Of
I mean,
Ilea.
this is also a hot screen cap. But I'm saying I wish you had the B'Elanna screen cap too, because if I remember correctly, that was like steamy stuff.
Oh, okay. You can get the screen caps next week then.
No, you're good. You're fine. You're doing a great job.
Next up, the Collectors were first established in the Most Toys, where we met Kevis Fajo.
Oh, Kevis. I kept
Kevis
calling him
Fajo.
Rivas, but it's Kevis Fajo. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a weird dude who apparently all the Collectors wanted Data because he was a rare item.
Two things, Father. He's one of the most despicable characters in all of Star Trek. Like pretty much, which that's a huge like he's probably like at the very bottom, like below Harry. Like Harry Mudd's like an angel compared to this guy. And number two, those are the movie theater lights that you see in AMC theaters everywhere.
Oh, well,
It's
our podcast audience won't notice. I'll
okay.
just cut that out so they don't have to. They don't have to be like, what the hell are they talking about? The Tamarian species were first established, of course, in the episode Darmok. And in this episode, we have Kayshon saying some dialogue that was established there. Things like Darmok and Jalad on the ocean, or Beast at Tanagra, or Timba, his arms open, or Shaka when the walls fell. He also mentions that he's struggling with Federation Standard. I know that's like appeared in the books and stuff, but I think the only other time Federation Standard was mentioned on screen in canon was Pike in Star Trek Discovery Season 2.
No way. That's
Uh,
cool.
in the that church episode, like the second
Yeah.
episode of the season that I can't think of the name of right now for some reason.
New Eden.
New Eden. There we go. Thank you. That was
Yeah.
in New Eden. Now to Eden. No, we
Yay,
have
brother.
this crazy collection right
It's
here.
so exciting.
So to help me go through this, I actually have this beautiful graphic that was prepared by our friend Aaron Harvey. He has an
Shout out
amazing
to Aaron.
podcast, by the way. Everyone should listen to Drawn to Trek. If you're into animated Star Trek, that is the place to talk about not just Lower Decks, but also Prodigy and also some old school, the animated series. Yeah, I'm gonna try to just like go through some of the stuff. He has like this really cool graphic. If you follow him on Twitter at Geek Filter, you can see what I'm talking about. But I'm not gonna name every single one of these things, but there are a bunch of paintings that were established in the Next Generation from Picard and Data. There is the Mars Curiosity rover. There's an arcade cabinet. There's a fidget spinner. There's a Nintendo Switch. There's a TOS ladies lieutenant uniform. Looks like a possible like Uhura uniform. There's a Gorn egg. There's a Horta egg, a Gorn skeleton, a Magato skeleton.
Did you mention Sargon's or whatever they are? Like...
I think that's a Horta egg.
Oh, it is? Okay, sorry. I mistook it as Sargon. Sorry, but you're right. It's a Horta egg.
There's the Valiant, that data log from where no man has gone before. There's the Salt Vampire from the Man Trap. There's Tindy is holding the Trident scanner and also the what is it, the Curlin Nasicos or whatever from the Chase, the thing that Picard got from his old professor. There's the little Magato head above like a Terran Empire flag. There's the paperback book of the Hotel Royale from the Royale in the Next Generation. There's a mask for the miners wore in that episode, the Cloud Miners of the original series. There's a bunch of melee weapons like the Vulcan Lepra and the Klingon Batleth and Khan's necklace.
That's amazing.
Of like the Starfleet Delta, I guess like belonged to his wife. There is a Class 8 probe. There is the Armin Shimmerman gift box, the Betazoid gift box that was played by Quark actor Armin Zimmerman, Next Generation, the episode The Haven. There's that
addictive video game.
The disc and the cone game from the game.
The craft from the Inner Light, the probe rather.
The probe from the Inner Light. The mask from Masks. Odo's bucket. The paper
this
mache,
collector. This
head.
Collector's insane, by the way. like, he seems familiar. It sounds like stuff I would collect.
We have possibly Cisco's baseball. We have the Vulcan baseball hat for that team, the Logicians, in Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite. Neelix's chef outfit, like an apron that he wore when he was cooking,
and his hat, his little hat, yeah.
Speaking of Voyager, there's the Cottiscot game. There's
so that I don't think I've. When does that game come into Voyager? Because I don't think I've like come across.
Seven and Naomi play it a lot.
Okay, so I haven't. Yeah, I'm not there yet.
On Discovery, Tilly played it.
With
Owo and Detmer, but we didn't see it. They just talk about it.
Oh, gotcha.
We have Worf's disintegrator from Star Trek Insurrection. We have the Chateau Picard wine.
Yes, I was so happy to see that.
Riker's trombone, or possibly Thomas Riker's trombone. We don't know if it's William Riker's.
That's true.
But
good point.
I think the shoes, like the tennis shoes we see, I think that's like Boimler's cool shoes we saw when in Cupid's errant arrow when he was trying to be cool and sexy. We have a Medusan case that you keep a
So
Medusan in.
wait. So they have Boimler's shoes. That means the collector's been like pilfering.
Well, I'm sure other people have those shoes. He just
Yeah, it's
replicated a
true. That's a
pair.
good point. That's a good point.
Um,
Uh,
there's
real
the
quick, real quick. Jill said no Picard crystal. Here's the Picard crystal. I have it here, right here for you, Jill. So, go
oh
on.
yeah,
Go on.
the Picard crystal. The Excalibins and the Excalibin copy of Abraham Lincoln, who died with a arrow in the back, kind of like how he's depicted here in the Collector's Museum. Uh, we actually have one of the most infamous props in all of Star Trek. Beverly Crusher's grandma's sex ghost candle from Sub Rosa.
It means
This
Ronan.
collector has it.
It means Ronan can come back one day, and I'm so excited.
I
Ronan
hope not.
deserves to be on Lower Decks.
He deserves to be forgotten.
By the way, Jill, no Picard crystal also because he holds it close to his vest and he's kept it at Chateau Picard very safe, so that's why it's not in the collection. Yeah, just FYI.
But there is a Ketracel white container.
Yep.
The portrait shows off a similar style to Kivas Fajo. There is a Salot, the Vulcan saber-toothed cat thing, skeleton. There's a water polo ball from Captain Archer on Enterprise. There's a poker visor. There's the Buzzard collector, kind of nacelle cap from a Type F shuttlecraft, like original series style shuttlecraft. There is the Territon City, the Shrunken City from that episode, Territon of the Territon incident in the animated series. So that's an amazing deep cut. And speaking of the animated series, the best for last is of course the 50-foot tall Spock skeleton.
Love
from the Infinite Vulcan.
Please make a Halloween t-shirt. Please, Star Trek, please make a Halloween t-shirt. It would be amazing. I would so wear that. Or we should do cosplay as Spock too. Can we call Boimler too as well?
Aaron Harvey, who literally wrote the book on the animated series, and just he deserves so much praise for helping to preserve all that information about the animated series, because it was kind of forgotten. You know, if someone hadn't been trying to collect it all and preserve it, it probably would have just disappeared as people aged and died off or whatever.
Yeah, the animated series has had its ups and downs. Like I remember at one point, speaking of what's canon and not canon, there was like a huge debate about whether or not the animated series was canon or not. Well,
it is canon, and as Aaron points out in the book, it's technically always been canon. Even like Gene Roddenberry did say for a little bit, like, oh, it shouldn't count as canon. But yeah, if everything Gene Roddenberry didn't count as canon, then Trouble with Tribbles, The Wrath of Khan, The Undiscovered Country, none of that would be canon. So
there you have it.
It was on screen, it was canon, and Lower Decks clearly is willing to reference it. And but just the way that this went down is Aaron told me. I was talking to him, and again, thank you, Aaron, for letting us use this and for putting all this together so quickly. But he went to the premiere of Lower Decks season 2 a couple of weeks ago, and when he saw this, they showed the first 2 episodes. When he saw this afterwards, he was talking to Mike McMahon, and he said, like, oh my god, why did you do that? You didn't have to kill giant Spock. And Mike McMahon said, he's so old though. This is so many years later. This is over 100 years later. So I don't know, would a giant 50-foot tall clone live longer or shorter? I don't know.
I think shorter. Giant people in general have shorter lifespans, so it makes sense.
But I don't know. He could have been like super powered and genetically enhanced. Like the scientist who made him, the dude who made him was supposed to be from like Khan's era, from like the 1990s, and he was. So
wow, we got to revisit that episode. But also, he has like a shot in the middle of his chest. I like to think that Spock 2 went down fighting. And and like, so maybe he was like protecting someone or something.
What makes him even weirder is he's created by Walter Koenig, because that episode, the Infinite Vulcan was written by Chekhov actor Walter
No way,
Koenig.
That's amazing. That's like a super amazing connection. I love that type. I love connectivity and threads that through lines throughout Star Trek, and this is just one of those like beautiful moments that people are going to be talking about this stuff and speculating about it, and it's a real great moment, and it's a gag, and again it plays to that thing where it's a gag, but it's reverential, and it's like, how do they pull that off? It's amazing. It's so good.
All right. Well, I have a few more Gorn eggs. I'm going to try to knock them all out rapid fire within about 5 minutes or less. We have the Riker pose when they celebrate defeating the Pakled ship. That is, of course, the famous Riker maneuver, and it is often seen throughout the Next Generation. When they arrive on the Collector ship, the commissioner asks them, "What took you so long, Starfleet? Were you off trying to debate the human rights of a robot?" That was a reference to Measure of a Man, in which Captain Picard defended the rights of Data to be classified as a life form.
And the whole premise of Star Trek Picard.
We've already talked about the Kahless fornication helmet, but that is, of course, connected to Kahless the Unforgettable, first established in the original series episode, The Savage Curtain. More on Savage Curtain in a little bit. In Riker's conference room aboard the Titan, there are some gold little miniature ships in the background that we see on the walls, but it's at a really weird angle. We can't tell exactly what they are, or I can't tell. So I'm not gonna try to label them. Well, I think one of them looks like a rocket, so maybe that's like an old Titan rocket from the 1950s.
I
don't know the rest though.
I have a strong I agree with Jurg, who posted what they are, and he got the help of Tadeo de Oreo. A bunch of folks got together and helped, and it seems like it was like given the stamp of approval because someone who works on Lower Decks kind of like acknowledged that it might be the case. So the first thing is the Titan.
It might have been someone who didn't like really know the ships, because not everyone who works on the show is going to care about that. So.
The Titan, the first one all the way in the end there is the Titan rocket. I don't know.
Oh, that's what I said.
Yeah, so you were correct about that.
Is the next one an Excelsior class? Because that's what it kind of looks like to me.
The one that's there that you see is the Jeffrey's mock-up for one of the early designs for the Enterprise. Okay. That was like when they were planning it out, and it kind of looks like I wish I had it to pull up for you, but I'll send you the tweet. But yeah, it's pretty much confirmed that it's that. The one behind the first officer there is likely the U.S.S. Titan, which was in the FASA role-playing game, and so now it's canonized or whatever, or official. And then that's called the U.S.S. Titan. It was a TOS era ship, and it was, I forget what the class of the ship was, but it's a FASA one, and the Franklin is based on it, so it kind of looks like the Franklin.
Okay, what's the last one?
And the last one is the Titan itself. This one, like, is this Titan. So there you go.
Okay, well, that all sounds plausible to me.
Excellent.
Back on the Collector's ship, the commissioner tells Rutherford that he has a top-notch menagerie. Of course, referencing the menagerie. That was the two-part story from the original series that used footage of the original pilot, the Cage. The shuttlecraft that the undercover team takes down to the mining planet is new, named the Coltrane.
Yeah, and it's cool.
I can assume that it's probably named after John Coltrane, the 100%. Jazz musician, and maybe all the shuttlecraft on the Titan are named after their jazz people.
So that means there's a bird, probably, or like, it'd be lots of different things. That's so cool. I wonder what they're gonna do.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool if like Riker put that part of his personality, into the ship.
naming of the shuttles.
The captain probably gets to name the shuttles, because Sisko got to name the runabouts at Deep Space Nine.
Oh yeah. So like Picard named the shuttles, like, what was it, the Elbaz, and like it's like, that's cool. It's like,
traditionally shuttlecraft are named after explorers.
Explorers,
so named, like or scientists. So they're named like Galileo or Cochrane.
Yeah.
But Lower Decks has kind of bent that rule, because we have the Californian class ships named their shuttles after parks in California.
Yeah, and DS9, it's all rivers. It's the Yangtze, the Danube.
Yeah, but those are runabouts. Runabouts are different than shuttlecraft, because runabouts have their own registry number, and they're technically a starship.
Okay, gotcha. Well said.
But Sisko got to name them. And I already mentioned the Excalibans before, but they're they
And
get a
did you
little bit
see
more
Lincoln back
spotlight.
there?
Yeah, we have the an actual like Excalibur and the remains of the Lincoln copy. All that was from the Savage Curtain.
So
But
good.
when Boimler says that he loves that Riker got to do he was catching love disease and playing the trombone, but also he was in plays. I think that was a reference to the episode Frame of Mind. I
Yep.
actually hate that episode. It's a very hard one for me to watch, but that's the one where Riker's going crazy, but he's also like doing a lot of play acting. And in Riker's ready room, we see on his desk Thaddeus Riker, the old Civil War soldier's
Yep.
cap from the Union Army in the Civil War. We also see a Oberth starship statue, so that was a connection to the Voyager episode Death Wish, as well as the Oberth class originally established in my favorite Star Trek movie, Star Trek 3.
Well, nice.
And then at the end, when Riker and William Boimler are sipping some Romulan Ale, they are going to listen to the song Nightbird. That was the song that Riker could never learn how to play
Land.
properly
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
trombone. And that's all the Gorn eggs. And I do have two subspace transmissions I want to read really quick before we sign off. I asked people, what did they think of the episode last week? And I have a couple of responses on it. I only have time to go through two of them. But if you have any thoughts on this episode, be sure to comment, hit me up on Twitter, on Facebook. I'll have posts that you can reply to, and we might share your thoughts next week if we have time. Our friend Robbie Earl Grey Trekkie said about last week's episode, I thought the first 5 minutes were spectacular and the rest was great too. It maybe wasn't the flashiest opener, but it did the important things right, developed multiple characters well, and left us a terrific cliffhanger to go back to. And that was on Twitter. Then on YouTube,
Nice.
Stress Free K commented, this was talking about, Brian had asked last week, was Mariner's attack on Ransom supposed to be some symbolism of, fighting against toxic masculinity? Stress Free K, longtime member of the Tex-Trek audience, said,
Shout out Stress Free K.
that's actually a very fascinating point about toxic masculinity, because it took three women working together to quell this one dude's massive ego and self-aggrandizement. How do you say that? Aggrandizement?
I think so. Aggrandizement.
What does that mean?
Aggrandizement. Aggrandizement.
Okay.
So
Okay. Self-aggrandizement, each trying different strategies, which probably happens in real life too. And so for some guys, you probably do have to come down on them with a ton of bricks. Stroking the ego or repeated jabs just won't do the trick. In the Gary Mitchell episode, the female who got the God complex didn't seem to blow completely out of proportion like Gary did. So yeah, Lower Decks was definitely driving the point home right through Ransom's gonads. The Gary Mitchell stuff did make me feel uncomfortable too, but it was a really good point they were making. So yeah, maybe that had some commentary on, I don't know, fragile male egos. That seems to be what Stress Free K is getting at. But let us know what you think, or not just about that, but about that episode last week, or this episode this week, or whatever. And
real quick, Father. So the other shuttlecraft should be Charlie Parker. So there should be a Parker.
Oh.
Yeah.
What would you name a shuttlecraft if you were captain of a ship?
Yeah, I like that question. Let us know.
But I think that's it for Tex-Trek this week. We will, of course, be back next week, 7:30 p.m. Central, and available wherever you get your podcast. Starfleet Boy, what's happening later tonight?
So there's a lot to talk about. I'm sure we'll keep talking about Lower Decks, but the Eternals trailer came out, and the season finale of Superman and Lois, which you probably haven't seen, and
I really want to see it.
So we won't talk too much about it if you're coming on tonight, which I hope you are. And just in general, What If, the series What If. So yeah, we'll be just talking shop. You guys get to steer the conversation. So if you come and join us in the chat, you can let us know what talk about. We try to stay respectful of whoever on the panel hasn't seen stuff, so we might not talk in great detail, but we'll definitely do spoiler free conversations about stuff. So come and join us on Starfleet Boy After Dark. It's going to start in about, I'm going to say 35 to 40 minutes, so like around 10:35, 10:45 Eastern Standard Time, so around that time.
Okay, so in about 30 or 40 minutes, check out Starfleet Boy After Dark. And until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Woo!
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you.